Welcome to a new Tools for Dummies Live in a slightly different setting than you're used to, because today we're going to talk about the contents of the infographic.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about the 7 basic forms of an infographic. We have a checklist. A checklist.
Do we have a chick?
No, we don't have a chick. Do we have a
Because then I'm interested.
We made a checklist for your content, and we're going to talk about data visualization. So let's start.
Before you can make an infographic, you of course need to know what an infographic exactly is. Well, it is literally a visual representation of information or data as a chart or a diagram. So we have written text and we are going to visualize that into a picture or a graph. And
So why do we use an infographic?
Yeah, there are a couple of reasons for using the infographic. For instance, they keep your attention. We all read the newspaper, maybe online, and it's a lot of text, but you can almost, well, if it's a very comprehensive article, then there's almost an infographic supporting the article. And, well, see for yourself, it immediately draws your attention. You would like to take a look at that instead of reading the text. And so that's for a lot of other people as well, because they found out that 80% of the newspaper readers are attracted to those infographics, while only 25% of the readers are actually reading the complete text.
Yeah, so they make infographics makes text more understandable, but it's also really handy because you can't share a text of 400 words on Instagram or Facebook, but you can share an image. So most of the time, if you check your newspaper, if you check the magazine of your supermarket, even there are infographics, just to, because it's more attractive and it's a really fun way to show information.
Mm-hmm. And as you can see here on the left, people just want to spend less time on reading, and in the middle, people just better remember what they see instead of what they hear or what they read. Even 65% has a visual learning style.
Yeah, so a lot of reasons why we use infographics, and there are 7 basic forms of an infographic.
Yeah, let's start at the top left. The profile infographic, who is it? Then, because this is all based on the 5 W's and the 2 H's. So the W's are who, when, what, where, and why. And then we have 2 H's, how and how many. And they can be visualized in these 7 basic forms, and these are the only forms that you need to use to choose from for your own infographic. But you can combine them. So the first one, as I already said, the profile, who is it? Then a timeline, when is it? The graph, how much is it? And then of course a map to show where something is. Then we have a scheme. So how is everything connected? Or maybe how is your own brand new iPhone made? Then the pointer. So what is what? Maybe a butcher wants to show what kind of meat comes out of his small little piggy. And last but not least, the process infographic. So how does it work? How did this plane crash take place? How did that happen?
Yeah, so lots of basic infographic forms, you can combine them together into one final infographic. For example, if we take a look at the timeline, if you have the subject World War II, you can combine it together with a graph.
The graphs over here to show, maybe when an event took place, but also how many people died in the event, or which side had the most weapons and the most things, to name just something.
Yeah, so a lot of basic forms, you can combine them. It depends on what kind of data you have, of course. We're going to talk about a little bit more about the comparison infographic, because in the second year you need to make a comparison infographic. In the first year you can choose what kind of form or what kind of infographic you would like to make. And this is an example of a comparison infographic.
Yeah, so first we have two examples of a side-by-side comparison. It's a very easy way to compare two things with each other. And as you can already see on the left, so the subject is what HR should and shouldn't be talking about. Well, 2017 was a couple of years ago. Well, let's name two things that they are using to, to make more clear that they are comparing two things. First is the use of color. So should is quite positive and shouldn't is a negative thing. So should is highlighted in green, the should side, and the shouldn't side is highlighted in red.
So a different example of a comparison infographic, you have the top and the bottom. So
it works the same way as the side by side, but the only difference is that one thing is at the top and the other one is at the bottom.
Yeah, and most of the time they put the positive things on the top and the negative things on the bottom. And you can see that they again used colors to address the differences between the two topics.
Yes, and of course icons and texts are put together to support each other. Yeah, this is quite a special kind of infographic. It's also a very funny one, because this infographic compares a human baby with a pet baby, a fur baby, as they call it over here. And they each have their own characteristics, but they also have some things in common. And to make that clear, you can use these overlapping circles. So for instance, the baby, for a baby you need to stock up on diapers, but a fur baby of course doesn't use diapers, well normally not, so you buy the poopy bags. But why is that? Because they both produce a lot of poop.
Yeah.
And so they have two more things on which they compare the two.
And again, the use of colors to show what belongs together and what overlaps.
This is also a fun kind of infographic. It's again a comparison infographic, and it shows the differences between several kinds of donors. If you take a closer look, then you can see that the way information is presented is it's the same with all four of them. So we have this a small title printed in capitals with a little border around them. A graph for every kind of donor, but the graphical style of it is exactly the same with all four of them. It's a very important thing to keep in mind when designing your infographic, because that way you can make your design have this clean and what was the word?
Yeah, calm.
Yeah, the calm look to it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to make use of very strange borders or those kind of things to divide the four. No, because you see that what belongs together is nicely put together. So every donor has its own character and the little title and a graph and a little bit of text to support it. It's all nicely put together, so you can immediately see that it belongs together. And it sounds quite easy, but we do see that,
So made a lot of mistakes with that.
There's still a lot of mistakes made on this subject. So, try to keep in mind that putting together information means that it also looks like it belongs together. And that's exactly the effect that you want to achieve.
And if you make information bigger, like the title, for example, and you can see some numbers in there, that immediately makes it more important. So that's also kind of a rule. Everything you make bigger in a design is more important.
Yeah, so if you want to put emphasis on something, then make it literally bigger.
Bigger. Bigger the better. So another kind of infographic is the persona infographic, so the profile infographic.
And it's a kind of infographic that shows, the, how do we say that, the core person of a target group, the one that represents the complete target group. And it usually is, an image of a person,
Yeah.
a character, and
the
it's surrounded
subject.
by the several characteristics. And it doesn't matter what the subject is, but the main form is every time is the same. So here we have the burglar. This clearly is a human, the backpacker. But the form in which the data is presented is the same in every one of them. So you have a person in the middle, and it is surrounded by the details that explain the characteristics of this person.
And if we take a look at this infographic, you can see that two basic forms are combined. So you have a profile and you have a graph. What is really cool about this infographic is the color palette, because it resembles the colors of nature, of a backpacker. You can see a lot of green in there. But if you're going to make an infographic about, for example,
A policeman.
the policeman, you're definitely going to use different kind of colors. So keep in mind that your design and the colors also should reflect on the subject of the infographic.
Yeah, you walk away that side. Then I will talk about the checklist for the content of the infographic. Make sure that your infographic always starts with a nice heading. The heading is the title of your infographic, and it should reflect the contents of your infographic as well. So don't put in there the word infographic. Some of you do, but it's wrong. Make sure that the title tells you a little bit about the contents of your infographic, and make sure that it is an attractive title that immediately grabs the attention of the reader. Okay, next thing. Below the title, you should put a little intro text. And the intro text also needs to be a little summary of what your infographic is about. So after reading the intro text, you know the story of your infographic. Then we have the eye catcher, and the eye catcher is the most important image of your infographic. And again, it immediately shows the viewer what the infographic is about. Not in detail, because you come to that after you zoom in on the infographic and are going to read it. But if you take a look at this eye catcher, this image, then we can immediately tell that this is about Asian food. But we don't know the details yet, and that's no problem at all. It just has to show you what the main subject of this infographic is. Then the fourth thing is visualizing data. Make sure that every picture that you have in there, every graph is supported by a short text. If you only use images, then it's not clear. It might not be clear to the viewer what this is about. So you should always explain it a little bit by adding some text. But if you use too much text or only text, then it's not an infographic anymore. So make sure that there's a good balance between the two. Okay, the final thing you need to make sure is that the goal of the infographic is clear to you and to the viewer. So some infographics might want you to learn something, and other infographics might want you to do something. So in this example, the Dutch government wants you to take action because of the coronavirus. It says, if you have any health issues, then stay at home. Wash your hands. So those are all little calls to action. If this were an infographic about maybe applying for a job or applying for this study, then the call to action could be, well, a link to the website on which you can subscribe yourself.
So we talked about the 7 basic forms. We showed you a checklist for the content, but now I want to talk a little bit more about visualizing data, because sometimes it's really hard to visualize what is most important of a big text. And I'll show you some tips and tricks on how you can easily do that. So I have like a little text here. It's about it's about broiler chicken and alternatives. So this is quite a big piece of text. So the first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan my text for data. So I immediately find the chickens have bad living circumstances and only live for 6 weeks. They are slaughtered after 41 days. So that's the first piece of data. Then they weigh 2 kilos after 41 days. And a bio chicken lives twice as long and grow way slower. So twice as long is around 80 days. Then we have another thing. Regular consumption of broiler chicken can cause problems like obesity, high blood pressure, and heart problems. Okay, so stop consuming broiler chickens and go for a healthy biological chicken meat. So when I scan the text, this is what I have left. So I have some kind of a title, I have some data, because they are slaughtered after 40 days, the broiler chicken, but the farmer chicken is slaughtered after 80 days. And I know that if you regular consume broiler chicken, it can cause obesity or high blood pressure. So when that is done, I'm going to think what should be in my infographic. So I need a heading, I need an intro text, I need a message or some kind of call to action, and I need data to visualize, and of course my eye catcher. So I made a list of things what should be in there. So I already thought about a catchy title. So it's going to be broiler chicken versus farm chicken. I have some introduction text. In the meat industry, there's still a huge difference between biological chicken meat and the so-called broiler chicks. So that's kind of the main message I want to send in my infographic. Then I have my call to action, some kind of conclusion. What do I want the target group to do with this information? I want them to stop consuming broiler chickens and go for healthy biological chicken meat. And then I have the data I want to visualize. So they live for only 40 days, the broiler chickens. They weigh 2 kilos after 40 days. They obtain antibiotics, and regular consumption can cause 2 different kind of health problems. And the biological chicken is slaughtered after 80 days, weighs 1 kilo after 40 days, and doesn't need any antibiotics. So how does it look like now? Because now I'm going to really visualize this information, and I think what kind of basic form of infographic fits my text. I see like a lot of days, so I'm going to choose for a timeline, and I visualized into this. So you can see I made a difference between the broiler chicken and the farm chicken with 2 different kind of colors. So I chose a green for my biological chicken and a kind of red for my broiler chicken, because I want to also show the comparison between good and bad. Then you can see I use different kind of icons, so like a little egg when they were born. I use like a drumstick when they died, because then they're ready for consumption. I used like the antibiotics. I used like a weighing, a scale, and like a heart with some dashes around it, so you can visualize heart problems. And I put only like around 10 words, I think, and it's immediately clear what it is about. So you don't need that much text. If you're in doubt, just remove the words and show it to your classmate or your parents and ask them if they understand the story. So what's next? Of course, your eye catcher. So I choose my chicken. I have chickens at home as well, so I was really pleased to make this little one. So my chicken is the eye catcher and also summarizes the subject because it is about chickens, right? Then I have my title, broiler chicken versus farm chicken, and I have my call to action. That's what the chicken says. The chicken says, stop consuming broiler chicks and go for a healthy biological option. So the final result is this, together with the introduction text. As you can see, it's way more attractive than a boring piece of text. It makes information more understandable. And the most important thing when you're visualizing information, just select what is most important and what is most important to know for your target group. And of course, we don't assume that you can make a really professional infographic right away. But when you start with using Illustrator, you can always use the font awesome for your icons. We explained that in a tutorial as well, in a different tutorial. Yeah, but first make up your mind, what do you want to make, what do you want to tell, and then be creative in Illustrator. Okay guys, now you know the basics of how to build your infographic content-wise.
Yeah, and we hope that you will have a lot of fun making one. And if there's any problem, of course, ask us or ask your project teacher and we will help you further.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Until next time.